Welcome to Live Town Hall. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Live Town Hall, we haven't seen you in a little while. The last time we saw you was in July. As of late, Live Town Hall and our associates at Brampton Focus, we just got some very good news. We did a press conference for Jagmeet Singh, and we got 50 million hits across the world. That's pretty good. We're very happy with that. For the Facebook and the Global Mail site alone, we got 1.4 million hits. So we thank you for joining us today. Live Town Hall is an interactive show where we encourage you to ask your questions and participate in our discussion today with our two guests. Our guests today could only stay for half an hour. Live Town Hall is usually an hour, but they had previous appointments that they had to go to that they could not break, so we appreciate them taking the time to be here today, to be with us. Although only half an hour, but we've got to make the most of it, and we appreciate your attention and your interaction. When you talk about the CAO of a city, basically this person is a top-tier executive. He's a de facto head of the business organization under the city council, actually the only person who's hired by city council. He's the official administrator, the manager of the city. He's responsible for the day-to-day operation of a city, and basically the buck stops with him. He will recruit, dismiss, he gives discipline, suspensions, and he also monitors and helps to present the budget. He's in attendance at every council meeting, but he doesn't vote because he's not an elected official, but is there to supervise and make sure that the business of the city is conducted in good terms. He previously was the CAO of Brampton, of Niagara Region, Loyalist Township, and the city of Fort Erie, and he is the new CAO of Brampton. His name is Mr. Harry Schlange. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you very much,
Joining
Michael.
Harry is Mr. Rob Elliott. Rob Elliott is the Commissioner of Planning and Development for the city of Brampton. We invite you to chime in on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Live Town Hall, and ask your questions. I'm going to start off, Harry, just basically, you had quite an assignment. The press has said that you had to deal with a fractious council, that you were charged with breathing new life into a bureaucracy poisoned by accusations and corruptions. A bit melodramatic, not as bad as that. But you were tasked to make a change. In the first 60 days, when you arrived in Brampton, you changed many of the top-tier people and brought in people to refresh. Can you give our folks at home an appraisal and your report? Now that you've been ensconced now in your position, you've got people around you who are working, you've got a plan, you've got a vision. Where do you see Brampton now that you've been here for a little while? You got your feet dirty, if you wish.
Well, where I see it now, and what I looked at, what attracted me to Brampton is the future growth. We know that we're going to be, by 2041, close to 1 million people. And so how do we set up the organization for that growth? How do we, become more nimble, quicker, more flexible, more fluid, much in a business organization that we streamline decision making? So we've done that now, but now it's time to transform the community. And I have to give council credit that we're really focusing on 6 major themes. One, which we're going to talk about today, the planning vision. Mm-hmm. We're focusing on our urban centers, Riverwalk to enable our flood mitigation strategies and enable the growth in our downtown, as well as the university. Everyone's heard a lot about the university, and we're really trying to promote health partnerships. So these changes have now enabled us as a team within the organization to really drive home these major initiatives which will transform the community.
Some questions that were posted online in advance of this. Gordon wants to know, how much has the city saved with the cuts that were made after paying out $4 million in severances? Are we still behind?
I think the major component of the transformation was to build what I was saying, a more business-like, a future-ready organization. So this whole concept of the transformation is to build a much faster organization, one that'll move and be ready for the future.
But for money-wise, as far as
the byproduct in doing that is we had to pay out severances of close to $8 million, and we're saving $4 million per year, about $4.2 million a year. So we're going to be paying that back in less than about 20 months.
It's the cost of doing business, I guess, to a certain extent.
It's an investment in this community.
The Globe Mail stated that with a population approaching 550,000, 2/3 of which are members of visible minorities, and a significant younger face than most of the country, Brampton, a place most outsiders still consider a sleepy little suburb just west of Toronto, is suddenly the nation's 9th largest city, and not far behind Vancouver. This week, the city of Brampton launched a new public engagement campaign called Future Ready. That's what you called it. The city hired an award-winning urban planner, Larry Beasley, to reinvent this rapidly growing suburb. What is future ready in your concept? What does that represent to people in Brampton?
What Future Ready is, as I said before, by 2041, we're going to be close to 1 million people. So how do we prepare our organization for that, which we've done? But we also want it to be a hub for innovation, a hub for jobs, and a future city that is a global leader. And that's the sort of mindset of everyone that we're trying to create within the organization. And now that with the university coming this way, there's a real reality that we're going to make that happen.
You had a website set up for people to come and contribute, and I viewed the website. You have 4 posts so far. You just launched it yesterday, so it's going to be more vibrant, obviously. But the major theme that we're seeing now is people want more restaurants, more nightlife, more business incentives. To engage the community to participate, we just had a jazz festival that was sponsored by a group called New Brampton. It's been created by independent people, developers, investment people. When you look at something like that, how important is it for New Brampton and every single person in Brampton to factor into your plan?
Through you, I'm almost like at a council meeting. Through you, Chair.
I'll take it as a compliment.
But again, we're trying to get as much input from the community at large. So we're hosting about 20 design charrettes where we're actually meeting with, hopefully, eyeballs face-to-face with over 1,000 people. So not just New Brampton, but a number of citizens. And on our website, we're hoping to attract another 3,000 people to give us input.
There's a website up on our front.
What's great about Larry Beasley, even though he's been successful in other cities in the world, he really felt that we had to hear from the people. What is it they want to see in the future of Brampton?
And the goal, obviously, is to build a plan by the people, for the people, instead of a bureaucratic plan driven to the people. So this way it will be a highly engaged activity that will keep the community involved for years to come.
Martha asks, is there any way we can take a look at the books? And the reason why I asked is because it seems we still have yet to balance the books since the Fennell era. As we found out, there was a $2.5 million, how should you say, a fund that 2 councillors who didn't know about it, they don't know about. How do you deal with stuff like that keeps coming up?
I think what's, and to be fair to the public, they don't always understand municipal finances isn't as easy as our home finances or even in a business. But I have to say that Brampton financials are very healthy. We're having third parties tell us that. Standard & Poor's say we have a AAA stable. We had CD Howe come and look at our transparency of financials. And I can assure the public that the city of Brampton has a very healthy financial statements, more than most in Canada.
Ali has a question. He says, I want to know what's being done about unsafe driving because I have almost been hit almost every time I have walked everywhere with my baby in the stroller. I don't feel safe walking anywhere and something needs to be done. What would you say to Ali?
Well, that's much why we're developing this planning vision. We really have to look at how we modify some of our suburbs. We found that some of our road networks are a bit too wide. How do we call it road dieting? How do we provide better sort of amenities along the roadways to slow down traffic? So that is one of the big things we'll be working on in our planning vision, and you're going to see some of that in our Downtown Reinvented program as we move forward.
And one of our goals through that is to actually bring the places from destination to origin closer together. So people aren't traveling as far in their vehicles. It gives them an opportunity to walk and be active in their transportation options.
Well, it's interesting you said that because as I watched Larry Beasley's statement, I reflected on that the LRT is still going to be a discussion in the next election. Although it can't be brought up in this course of council because it was decided on, it's still going to be a component that is going to be very relevant when we look at the university coming. And currently spending some $4 million to reevaluate, as some would say, alternative routes that have already been dismissed. Some people in Brampton are a little reluctant to support that effort. The one thing I found, Larry Beasley said in the future, ultimately, it won't be about transit. In the future, there's only one thing that I have found anywhere in the world that actually works, and that's called proximity. Beasley goes on to say that to get origin of destination closer together and shorter trips and fewer trips is pulling destinations closer. How do we square the potential of LRT servicing a university and enriching the Brampton experience downtown with what Mr. Beasley's talking about?
Well, regardless, it's still a large city geographically, and people are going to want to make destinations that require some kind of transit. Regardless, though, I think what we want to do is make sure that those options are available outside of the car. You know, the city's been evolving much as a car-oriented city and suburb over the last 30 or 40 years, and it's time to take that to a new way of thinking. So by bringing people closer together, we still need alternative options, and as we bring more density and more people, the car just won't be the primary choice or option for people to get around.
The unfortunate reality of that statement, though, is that you have to bring jobs closer so people have proximity. So therefore, we would go back to it's the chicken or the egg. There's still going to be a longer time that's going to be needed to supply transport, and that's kind of what people are saying. And with the LRT, again, I'm saying that's going to be an election issue. There's going to be several politicians that are going to put a stick in the sand and say, hey, how do you square that?
Well, just as I said before, with council having the courage to modify their strat plan to talk about the university, that'll attract jobs as we move forward, as well as if you look at transit, we're almost tripling, 5 times our national average on our bus routes. Mm-hmm. Our ridership each year grows about 17 to 20%. The national average is only 3%. So really people are looking at other options other than road network.
Okay. Wesley says Four Corners seems to get the lion's share of city initiative and big ticket infrastructure spending. What is the strategy for the rest of the other areas of the city?
Well, again, in the future vision, we're going to, future vision and the planning vision, we are going to make sure that each and every neighborhood gets attention. Right now, with things like the university announcement, you're seeing some investment in the city core, but there has been several investments in the other wards as well.
And the great thing about Brampton and where we are today is, as a city, we've got greenfield development yet to be developed. We've got a downtown core, which is very urban, and we've got aging suburbs and some newer suburbs that are ripe for some kind of a renewal project or a plan around that. So there's something for everybody in the city.
And where's all this money going to come from? I mean, I think the city, people of Brampton have had a levy put on for hospitals, et cetera, and that's another question we've got later on. But where's all this money going to come from for this wonderful vision and this replanning and rejuvenation?
Well, as you know, there's significant investment announcements made by the federal and provincial governments, in the 200 to 250 billion range. As the 9th largest city, we're going to be working with our partners. There has to be public investment for private investment as well, so we'll be looking at private partners. So we've put a long-term financial plan together.
What kind of a budget are you looking to generate for this?
Well, we've already looked at a long-term financial plan and all the number of initiatives that we have. And we're
What's the number?
Well, I mean, we're presenting that to council in the fall.
Oh, okay.
And they'll see that. But again, there's many different ways and tools that you could raise money, and it's not just through the tax rate.
Denise wants to know, how important are the arts to Brampton community and culture? Why doesn't the city give its community groups the Rose Theatre stage for free as a way of supporting local groups? And is he aware that 4 arts groups generate almost 25% of all patrons attending the Rose Theatre?
Thank you, Michael. And really, we saw that how we do agree that arts contributes a great deal to the culture, how the city feels. And so one of our transformations we've made is that arts and culture report to economic development. So we recognize how important arts and culture is to retain and attract our residents and provide that cultural benefit. So we are investing in those areas.
Susan asks, will we ever see Peel Memorial as another proper hospital, or will it stay a giant walk-in clinic? This is not what we were promised.
Again, Peel Memorial is a fantastic establishment. A lot of volunteers made that happen. The current volumes are far exceeding what they expected. Mm-hmm. Our council at AMO in Ottawa tried to get a meeting with the Minister of Health to recognize that we need to either expand some of the hours at Peel Memorial, look at alternative ways to providing more services within the 2 hospitals, and of course with the LHIN we're looking at a 3rd hospital, so there's plenty of attention on that.
Do you foresee another phase with the hospital?
We're expecting another phase, and that's something our council has been very proactive on making sure that happens.
So we're trying to engage Bramptonians to go to your site. The site is up there, to leave a comment or a suggestion, and a specific suggestion for what they feel they would like to see in their new city. When you have someone out there who may say, why am I doing this? they're not going to listen to me. They're not going. Why does the campaign matter to them? I know it matters. I'm asking from someone who's on the fence and say the government never listens to me. The city doesn't care. They spend my money and I don't get anything for it. This is an effort to try and change that because you want to engage the public. Why should they matter? Sell me.
This is a fantastic opportunity that not many municipalities embark on, is reaching out to the public to this extent that we're doing. Mm-hmm. And what we will do is we're going to culminate all this information into some platforms and themes. So we're going to take those themes then and actually develop planning policy around those. So it does matter. It really matters to hear from people so that we can deliver a city that's responsive to their needs in the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years and beyond.
So it is important that you come, and Larry Beasley has told us that you've got to build this from the ground up, and Council's very supportive. We're going out to many sites to meet people that perhaps have never come to City Hall, so we really feel that this input's going to really help us build a future-ready city.
Michelle wants to know, when will we see the revenue-generating departments generating revenue? You see the budget, you see the numbers. She asks, recreation centers, recreation programs, theater development charges, tickets, etc. Are they greater than their expenses?
Yes, they are, and they are generating revenues, but the city does subsidize many of those services, much like we subsidize roads. We're finding that to become an attractive city, one that has arts, culture, and recreation has been a real positive. We get tremendous feedback from the community on our sites and our recreational sites. So it is something we subsidize, and of course we're always looking at being more efficient in those areas.
We've gotten a lot of questions regarding the arts. Denise asks, how important is the role of the Director of Economic Development to understand the arts and their needs? She goes on to ask, what plan does City Council have of supporting the arts in Brampton, and what has been shared with this potential plan?
Again, we reorganized, we restructured that to become part of Director of Economic Development. We've also hired some very key people, respectful people in the field. We are developing a formalized plan, and that'll be shared with the public.
So, but would you not say that the arts is important to the city?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And in fact, the director promotes it all the time, not just the job component.
Do you think that harsher fines for distracted driving and speeding would help with making people more aware of how they are driving and make them more careful? That's a provincial question, but you can reflect on that. We don't filter the questions. That's a deal here. That's a little bit more. That's a MOT question, but. Let's reflect that to Brampton. Is there a plan in your strategic appraisal to be able to moderate traffic and bring more foot traffic and rejuvenate the center of the city? I guess that would be part of your future ready, right?
Yes, and I think what's really going to be impressive with the public is you're going to start to see some of that, what we're calling downtown reimagined, down Main Street and Queen here in the city, and how we're going to start to widen the sidewalks, narrow the streets, beautify the area, which calms traffic down. Those of you that lived in different cities in Europe, once you beautify the area, it slows the traffic down.
And we'll
of course,
encourage bicycles,
the law and bicycles. We're going to have bike paths.
Yeah, and
of
so
course, law enforcement changes that behavior, but I mean, you need to develop your community in a different way.
Of course, but as we plan forward too, we're also looking at streets from a complete perspective. Not just avenue to move cars, but to move people. It's a pedestrian place. So the way in which we approach this will be different in the future.
Sharon asks, what's the role of the artistic director of the theater for the city of Brampton? That person hasn't reached out to the community or called a meeting of the community group to ask what the arts in Brampton is looking for.
Yeah. He's currently really trying to understand current state. He only started about 100 days ago, 90 days ago.
Yeah.
So he's really trying to understand current state, but he will be reaching out to the public.
So it'll be something that he will reach out to the arts community, because we had the Jazz Festival just recently. We had the Arts Festival, that Arts Alive, that happened. I mean, you look at all the things that are happening in Brampton, it's quite exciting as far as people trying to get
That's
together.
why we attracted that type of talent, because he's seen how exciting Brampton is.
How does the city value sports, especially youth, as an economic driver? With the sports component of the university be a focus of the attraction for tourism and bring entertainment dollars to the city?
We actually see that sports tourism is something that Brampton is known for. So how do we try and really leverage that to a much higher degree? We view that very highly jointly with council, and again, we've moved that into economic development to look at different ways that we can, increase the market share of our sports tourism.
We had a little bump a little while ago when you had the council that supported an independent sports team here in Brampton, and there were some people who were highly objectionable to tax dollars funding an entrepreneurial sport venture. I mean, it's going to come back into fore again at the stadium there. How do you work when you have council giving money to a certain thing, and you have the public coming to you as their representative? How do you mitigate that when you come to it? Like, the Powerade Center is owned by the city, but the franchise that's in the Powerade Center, who was given the money from the city, I think it's over 3 years, I believe it is. How do you answer a question from someone from the public who says, "You're the guy, the buck stops with you because you are the man"?
Again, council, directs us and directs us in where they want to go, and we implement. And it's not unusual for other cities. If you look at Belleville recently with the Ottawa Senators supporting professional sports teams. So council's made that decision, and we're working forward to make it the best we possibly can for our residents.
When you talk about Mr. Beasley, you're talking about an international figure who brings a lot of credentials to this town and allows you and your staff to be able to utilize him and his staff. I believe he's going to come to Brampton 3 times or 6 times, something like that, and engage. What made you select him to be the figurehead, or at the head of the parade, let us say, to march forward to a future-ready perspective?
Again, for the public, the future ready, we're talking about a city that is going to grow 50% more than it is today. So when you scour the North American market and you look for a planner that has done that type of role, there's very few in North America. So in the recruiting process, I realized that I'm going to need a real visionary that brings us to that spot. At the same time, we're growing right now, and there's huge operational requirements that we're trying to meet each and every day. So I decided very early on in the recruit process, I'm going to recruit someone that really understands the region appeal in the Brampton. Rob's a Brampton boy, so he understands it. And have someone beside him.
And worked at Region Appeal, so he comes with cred. That's right.
And have someone beside him that has done huge things and innovative things across the world. And when I started to pursue that avenue, Larry Beasley's name came up everywhere, not just in Vancouver, but in Dallas and Oslo, Norway, Melbourne, Australia, 2 cities in Abu Dhabi. Everybody said, "You got to get Larry Beasley. He's the only guy in the world that can do this job." I called him, and he came and looked at Brampton, and in the end, he feels that this is a great initiative that he could help us innovate suburbia.
Now, on your video, Beasley states he wants to create a magic kind of energy for the city, a kind of energy that is not here yet. I had one person who sent me an email and said, "Who the hell is this? Pardon me, who the heck is this guy?" She used hell, and it was an old woman, so I thought that was quite interesting, to come here and say that energy doesn't exist here yet. And I come back to our arts community, I come back to the Rose Theatre. That's something that we have to take up with Mr. Beasley. We would love to challenge that. It does exist here, and that he should be in a position to enrich it. Now, maybe taken out of context, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but it is something that he said, and that is something that we want, or they would expect the person who's ahead of the parade to be a supporter, because there is some of that here.
Oh, I'll reassure the public when we drive Larry around in all the neighborhoods, he feels an energy, and maybe this was taken out of context, but that's the reason he took this job. He feels that this is a tremendous opportunity to put Brampton on the global map of how you transform a suburb into a more innovative, creative space for living.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities here available to the city and to our residents. He's going to help us package that up in a way that helps us see the greatest reward out of all those things.
Is there any expectation of performance when you come to him? I mean, he is a futurist, if you wish. He's not a planner. So I would suggest that his position is to gather all the ideas and present the ideas to you guys, who then package that and present it to City Council for consideration and funding. Does that?
So he'll create a great planning vision, and we're not quite sure what that document is. That's an evolution over time, and in Q2 of next year, we'll see something before council and the public.
Will it be before the election or after?
That'll be before the election.
Before the election.
Then it's our job as staff and elected officials to take that and actually turn that into real policy that helps us make land use decisions that are in the best interest of this community.
But when selecting Larry, he doesn't just talk about the vision. He talks about how you implement that. how the organization has to be structured to implement that. And it's a whole implementation
Well, he has
plan.
a unique opportunity with Brampton because it is a little bit of plasticine that will allow you to be able to manipulate, and using someone of that nature can create certain opportunities and things that will benefit the city, because you're at like the root, like we're really at the crucial point now.
Yeah.
And we're really, the horses have already left the barn, as we were talking before we came on. The amount of people who are leaving Brampton to go and work has to change. We have to make work here in Brampton so they can come back to the proximity thing. Joyce wants to know, what's the update on the major mall that is to come to Brampton?
Oh, that's in the northwest.
Northwest Brampton, and there's land use approvals. It is in their court now to decide where they want to take that next. Haven't got an application to go to building permit or anything as yet, but the approvals are in place.
Davina wants to know, why is the city of Brampton not allowing taxpayers who are struggling to keep their homes with tax arrears? She says that to be able to apply funds directly on the tax amount to help reduce interest so they can catch up on arrears and not lose their homes. The municipal act interpreted differently in Brampton than other municipalities who allow taxpayers to allow this to help save homes. Brampton chooses not to do this. Don't ask, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry to the public. I'd have to take that back. I wasn't aware of that question. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to come back on that. Davina's wondering. When you look at the future of Brampton, when you consider, is that you or me? It's not either, I don't think. When you look at the city of Brampton and you look at engaging the public, what, I was speaking to this before, Bill Lawrence, a Tiny Town Time host, former CBC weatherman, always had a beautiful thing. He said, if I could wave a magic wand and allow you to change something, you really are the only person hired by council. You have that power. Is there one thing that you would like to change? Is there one thing that you wish you could just go like that and make a difference in the city of Brampton today?
Firstly, I want to compliment council on the courage they've had to move us in the direction that we're going. I guess we'd like to see, the university up and running and 15,000 people in our downtown overnight.
So it would be the university. I think that would be an excellent...
and Riverwalk, the flood mitigation, so we could actually intensify our downtown immediately.
So if we're talking about future ready. If you were going to look ahead in the future, what are the results that you want to see from this exercise?
I would love to see a place that's a destination. Brampton is a destination where people come to instead of drive past. It's a place where people are really proud to be a part of, and it's a place where people have choice, a choice to live, a choice to go to school, a choice to grow up. I think what I'd like to see is an opportunity within the neighborhoods to be young, buy your first home not miles away from where you grew up, but if you had a more mixed-use neighborhoods, that would give us more choice. I think it would be a fantastic landing spot for us.
When they say that almost 2/3 of Brampton is visible minorities and probably has the fastest growing immigrant population, how do you factor that in and still address Brampton keeping its own identity? We are enriched by immigration, and we embrace all who come as friends and as fellow city dwellers. How do you maintain Brampton? I mean, formerly the Flower City, still is a Flower City, but that's not necessarily the marketing. How do you get that to work?
So this is the great thing about this outreach campaign that we're on, is we want to hear what people are looking for in this city. And there will always be conflict, and there's not one right answer. That's the great thing about city building. It's very complicated. So at the end of the day, what we're looking for is a vast opportunities and different experiences, and something for everybody.
So we're encouraging you to go to brampton.ca/future ready. You can post your video there. You can post your comment. You can have an influence. This is a very unique opportunity. You can have an influence to alter and affect positively the future of Brampton's development. These two gentlemen are here to discuss this, and Mr. Beasley has been hired by the city as a visionary, and we encourage you to participate. That's something that is very important. When you look at the population, some of them may not necessarily have English as a first language. How are you addressing that for their inclusiveness, for them to be able to contribute?
Oh, we will ensure that we'll have staff members that can speak the key languages that we support in the city. There's also a telephone system that we have that allow up to 150 languages in translation. So we're going to have that set up at the various design charrettes.
How much of this vision can you implement with this council before the election in 2018? Because there's all kinds of interesting aspects that could come into play. budget commitment, etc. How are you going to be able to ensure that some of these objectives and going through this whole process and this expenditure is going to result in the results that you want without having a council potentially changing everything that you've set up and organized already?
Again, you know, Larry's past experience, this will be a livable document at a very high level. The implementation strategies underlying that and policies will be decided partially by this council and future councils. But it is something with that much feedback from the public, it'll withstand future councils, and that's really our objective.
So we're at 29 minutes. I want to give you an opportunity to speak directly to the folks. If you wish them to hear and engage them to participate, you have the opportunity, you have the floor.
Well, what I would like to message and communicate to the public is that it's so important to hear from you, whether it's through our website, through a charrette opportunity, or a message through our email accounts. Either way, we were going to take that feedback, and that will help develop our plan for the future. So please participate.
And I want to say our council's fully supportive. They're the ones that said we need to look at the future of what Brampton will be when it's built out in 2041 and beyond, and totally supportive and really want you to provide the input.
Rob Elliott, the Commissioner of Planning and Development for the City of Brampton, and Harry Schlange, who is the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Brampton. My name is Michael A. Charbon. You've been watching Live Town Hall. Thank you very much for participating. Post any of your future questions and we'll pass them on. We look forward to meeting with you again. Thanks for watching.